I'm Adrienne Hines. I've spent 20 years fighting the insurance companies, corporations, and the legal system.
And I'm Kristen Paris. I'm navigating divorce, digital business, and life on the farm without a map.
Here, we are stripping away the polite conversation. We're talking about the money,
The mess.
and the legal traps trying to ruin your life.
Welcome to season 3 of High Heels and Hay Bales. So we need a palate cleanser. Let's talk about your favorite thing, Real Housewives, this time Real Housewives of Potomac, and specifically Dr. Wendy Osefo and the rumors about her husband's credit cards.
Like, girl, this is like the pinnacle of joy for me right now because you don't even watch these shows. And yet you're the one who's like, hey, let's do an episode about this because you know I love this stuff. I've been sending you so much juicy gossip. You just had to dive in, didn't you?
I did.
You can't help yourself. You can't help yourself. Well, if you don't watch Bravo, like Kristen generally does not watch Bravo, whereas I do, let me give you the quick background with Dr. Wendy Osefo and her husband, Eddie. They are stars on The Real Housewives of Potomac, and Wendy Osefo loves to remind people that she is a doctor. And I just wanted to talk about this briefly because this is the kind of stuff that I think all leads into this, right? She's not a real medical doctor. She has a PhD in public affairs, but she does insist you call her doctor. And at one point she did teach at Johns Hopkins, which I think is kind of cool. Most recently, she was working she had a job as a distinguished visiting sociology professor at Wesleyan University. Her husband, Eddie, I'm just setting you up here so you know who these people are. Eddie, that dude is an actual full-fledged lawyer. So, like, on paper, these two are very highly educated. They're a power couple. They're on Real Housewives of Potomac. Obviously, they're rich and famous and doing all this stuff, right?
Right.
Mm.
And that's exactly why we are talking about them today, because they built their entire brand on being smarter and more successful than everyone else in the room.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at the court documents, their public resumes don't match the financial dumpster fire that is happening behind closed doors. And that, I think, is why I was like, okay, yep, now is the time. Let's do this, because this is it's a good one.
This is a juicy one. It is a story as old as time. And let's just hit some of the high notes of the gossipy stuff so people know what's coming. So what has triggered this is on October 9th, 2025, Wendy and Eddie Osefo were arrested. And I'll get into all of the charges and everything. But some of the initial things that we were hearing coming right out of the gate is that they are being charged with financial fraud and conspiracy, and it gets kind of crazy. Some of the first pieces of information to come out were things like between the two of them, they had maybe 67 credit cards, right? Like
Excuse me, what?
67 credit cards. So credit cards.
I have
67 of them.
I have like 4 and I can't manage them.
Yeah, I have like 5 and I can't manage them. But these things were all tucked in like luxury purses, like around the house and stuff. So luxury wallets, luxury purses, credit cards stuffed into these things, hidden all around. And I think the numbers even gone up from there. Initial stuff came out from prosecutors and law enforcement saying that Wendy and Eddie have been using fake names, that many of these credit cards are in fake names, right? Some of the names they were using, she was using Pam Oliver. Sounds like a very regular mundane name, Pam Oliver. Eddie was using Eddie Hennessy. I don't know why. I just don't think it's all that creative to use Hennessy.
Yeah.
Hennessy is used by everybody as a moniker. And so I'm not sure why you thought that would be cool, but Eddie Hennessy, the lawyers are like, they did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. Of course, famous people use fake names to get deliveries and stuff. But Kristen, when a husband and wife is arrested and for financial misdoing, wrongdoing, and there are upwards of over 60 credit cards between the two of them, I am here to tell you that this story is not going to end well for them. It just can't. You cannot have 67 cards and not be doing something you shouldn't be doing.
No. Here's my question. How do you keep track of like when payments are due and how do you get, okay, yes, fake names and whatnot, but like, is there a maximum amount? Amount of credit cards you can have as a single person? I have many, many questions. How do you keep track? I assume there's like annual fees on them or at least like the interest on it. Like I don't that's that's crazy. And Eddie Hennessy, that sounds like a terrible, terrible mobster name. I
It
could see
does,
the
Dan.
movie. I could see the
It
movie
does.
now. Eddie Hennessy.
With his 67 credit cards and being arrested, being perp walked out, with credit cards falling out. That's Eddie Hennessy. That's your famous name right there. Yeah, honey, as a lawyer, when I hear 67 credit cards, I do not hear somebody who's rich. I hear somebody who's playing a shell game. You use card number 40 so you can pay the minimum on card number 12. And you use card number 62 because it's probably still got something on it to go buy some fancy stuff. But honestly, Kristen, having 67 credit cards isn't in and of itself a crime. It was
Right.
just kind of exhausting, but also an indicator of what was to come. What is a crime is what the prosecutors say they were doing when these cards got maxed out. On October 29th, 2025, it dates back to April of 2024. The Osefos went on a vacation to Jamaica. It just so happened, I think I might have been in Jamaica at the same time as them. Isn't that crazy? But while they were vacationing in Jamaica, I believe they came back or they called from Jamaica to say that their house had been broken into. Okay. This is where it starts. hmm So they claimed that their house had been broken into and they filed insurance claims for a lot of stuff, over $450,000 worth of items. We're talking luxury purses, luxury bags, that kind of stuff. And they allege that jewelry was there too. They just alleged that it was all stolen. Okay. Police arrive. They find a mattress on the floor, but the security cameras show no motion. There's no forced entry, right? Like, so it's already kind of weird. The Osefos put in insurance claims for loss of all these things, but the Popo was watching them, Kristen. The Popo was watching them because it just didn't seem right, right? And what did the Popo find? The Popo started monitoring her social medias because she is a star, right? They claimed that one of the things that had been stolen, for example, was a Christian Dior shirt worth $1,450. And they claimed that it was gone. But the detectives found receipts showing they had returned those items for full cash refund long before the alleged robbery. But then
Oh.
the social media gets them weeks after reporting her diamond anniversary band had been stolen. She posted an Instagram photo wearing the ring. Like, this woman ain't smart, Kristen. We are not talking about smartness here. The prosecutors claim they found an email from Eddie to Wendy that says, I'm going to try to get the total to exceed $423,000, which is our policy maximum.
Okay,
So,
listen.
mhm,
Pause
mhm.
because
Okay,
I am obviously small time here, not
right.
a criminal, but
Mhm.
I'm not dumb enough to leave a freaking paper trail. I mean, receipts, okay, that could be, that could
I'd
be
be dumb
an
enough to leave a
oversight.
receipt. I would
Right.
absolutely be dumb enough to leave a receipt because I
It,
can't keep track of them. So, yeah,
yes.
I agree
Right.
with you that maybe the receipts are, yeah.
But if I'm going to email, all right, I'm going to email my boyfriend and say, "Hey, I'm going to get it over at this cuz this is our max." That's ridiculous. Are you like, if she's a doctor and he's a friggin' lawyer, he should know. that they're gonna investigate. Like, this
I
is
I
this
mean,
is criminal 101. You don't do that stuff.
I that is something that my lawyer brain would never let me do if I was gonna engage in something dumb like this. But most importantly, as people who are on social media, you and I, we are intimately aware of what is behind us, what's around us, what we're wearing, what we look like, what our jewelry is, what the things are. I cannot imagine the kind of life that you're living that you report $400,000 worth of shit stolen, and then you turn around and few months later you wear it on your social medias. Like, I don't know, that's crazy to me. Honestly, that's crazy.
It
It's
is.
crazy.
It's the whole Instagram versus reality trap. Like, but I mean, again, like, I have known some crooked folk that have gotten away with some crazy stuff, but like,
Well, they didn't get
this is
away
just
with it.
nuts. Well,
I mean, they
yeah,
didn't get
but
away with it, but yeah, it's really it's crazy that I'm sure they've gotten away with it before. I'm sure many people, I'm sure this isn't their first time. Usually
well,
when somebody commits a crime like this, they've done littler things along the way. And so my brain goes to what else has been piling up? Because once you get to this point where you're faking a robbery in your home, this is like you've gone too far. I know that there's other stuff. So here's the thing. They filed a $450,000 insurance claim for items that were never actually stolen. Investigators claim that surveillance footage showed no signs of forced entry and found there were items that were reported as stolen that were either found in the home during a search or had been returned to stores for the full refund before the burglary. And of course, the social media slip up. So, right now, as we sit here today, Wendy Osefo faces 16 charges, including 7 felony counts of insurance fraud, 8 counts of conspiracy, and 1 count of making a false statement to police. Eddie faces 18 charges himself. They spent one night in the Carroll County Detention Center. They were released on $50,000 in bond, but they're being charged with, if they were convicted on all counts, they could face up to 15 years in prison. And there's an allegation and more recently that because they had all of these credit cards under different names, that there may be an issue of aliases and potential fraud in that lane, right?
like
Misrepresenting
identity
yourself.
theft,
Not
identity theft. You think?
it could be identity theft or it could be faking identity. There's something called credit card application fraud. So if
Hmm.
you say that you're somebody else, if you say that you make more money than you do, if you say, things, you can actually be charged with felonies through that. It'll be interesting to see if that happens or not, but I don't know.
Well, here's
Um
my question though, Adrian. I
yeah,
know when you file, like when you apply for a credit card, you have to have a social security number. So if they're using aliases, there's got to be something with with a social security number fraud or something, some sort of identity theft.
it's perplexing because it's difficult to imagine how they would qualify to receive 67 credit cards. I mean, I know as a bankruptcy lawyer, anybody can get credit. And I know that credit card companies will throw credit at people even if they can't afford it, but 67 is a lot. And if they're under even if there's 30 in each one of their names, even if they were all under their social security numbers, they're just changing faking a name. I don't think it would be realistic to expect that they could acquire that many credit cards without faking some of the details. I just don't imagine that is possible. So I'm interested to see what these things say.
Well, that's what I'm also curious to know what the credit card limits were. Like how much
Mhm.
were actually 67 credit cards, it could be $1,000 each, or is it $50,000 each? I mean, this could get even bigger than what they're just the robbery stuff, this could get way bigger. And the
It
thing is,
sounds
I think, oh, I was going to say I think it's the pressure that made them do it being just, again, trying to keep up with the Joneses. And this isn't just a Bravo thing. This stuff happens to normal everyday people.
It really does happen to normal everyday people who get ahead of themselves and who start to believe that the rules don't apply to them. I mean, and understand what they were doing, Kristen. The reason that they filed an insurance claim for $450,000 so that they could pay off the credit cards, right? Like
Right.
that was the point. So they had been using the credit cards to buy high-end things and then alleging these things were stolen. They would return some of them for cash, but they couldn't pay the credit card bills, so they had to fake a robbery. And that's where we're at now. It's interesting to see what Wendy is going to be doing. She is claiming that the police engaged in an illegal arrest and she's claiming an unlawful search and seizure. She's not, there's no humility here. There's no accepting of consequences. It looks like we have ourselves a full blown legal drama that is going to be moving forward. And I don't really know what's going to happen here because this is just starting to unfold. I kept sending you memes about this because it's almost predictable at this point. It's almost predictable. It's one of the reasons why I think Bravo is so hilarious, not because I want to watch really wealthy people roll around in their wealth, is because I know that most people are faking it to some
Mm-hmm.
extent. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
fascinated with how people will fake it and how they'll treat other people. And I don't love Bravo because I think it's a great thing. I'm fascinated with it because it shows you people. And that's why I love it.
Right.
But I mean, at the end of the day, we laugh at the housewives, right? But normal people are doing this too. Normal people are also trying to keep up. What
Mm-hmm.
does keeping up look like in your world, Kristen? I mean, it may not be 67 credit cards and a Christian Dior shirt and a Gucci wallet and all that stuff, but what does keeping up look like for you?
Yeah, it's definitely not Birkin bags for me. It's the Stanley Cups. I mean, my kid, when Stanley Cups were huge, all of the little girls at school had Stanleys. And I'm like, here's your $20 knockoff. Cause baby, I'm not buying you an $80 cup or having the Pinterest perfect homestead or the $500 birthday party because the other moms did it. Even if I have to take out a short-term loan to do it, there are so many things on a smaller scale that happen with that's where it trips people up in the middle class. You don't really have to keep up with everybody. You just need to live your own good life and keep it within your budget.
I think it's really the same if you think about it. I mean, Wendy and Eddie Osefo, their parameters were just larger, right?
Mhm.
So, you feel like you got to keep up with kids' birthday parties. You feel like you got to keep up with trips, and doing things like Disney, which is what Americans do. You're trying to keep up with Stanley Cups. It's just a different scale. They're going to Jamaica, not to Disney, right? They're buying Birkin bags and Gucci. It's not Stanley Cups. It's the same, but it's just a different scale. And that is something that I've seen in my own practice. The problems that the middle class have are similar problems that people who have more money have. Only the people with more money, there's are bigger problems. They also have the power and the giddy up to be able to subsidize or backfill, hire lawyers, fight back, right?
Mhm.
And so the less you've got, the harder it is to, even when you step your foot off of the trail. It does. I mean, stuff really sneaks up on you too.
It does. It's $50 increments here, $100 there, Afterpay, Klarna, all of that stuff, and it's a smaller scale for middle class. I can't get $450,000 in loans, but I can buy a new Carhartt with Afterpay and then get stuck in that payment plan for however long.
Oh, believe me, you can get stuck in plenty of debt. You may not be able to get yourself up to 450,000 based on your current financial situation, but there's plenty of credit card companies and people will loan money to you until you are so strung across the wire that you're going to be thinking about staging
Mhm,
a robbery too. It's just going to be smaller increments that you're going to be listing on your insurance claim, right? It
mhm.
just kind of is.
So, Adrian, you have a successful law firm. You don't have to use Afterpay for groceries, but do you still feel this this pressure?
Ugh, I think the pressure, like I said, I think the pressure just gets bigger, and the bigger pool you're swimming in. You go from the your backyard your backyard pool, to an above, you go from a play kids pool, kiddie pool, to an above ground pool, and then you go down the street to the club pool, right? It's the next group of people. Everybody always wants to be in the next economic group above them, right? And
Mhm.
and it doesn't matter who you are. And people in my category are the same. It is it is absolutely no different. I'll tell you what I'm very overwhelmed with these days in my socioeconomic group. It's this looking young thing. It's drips that, keep you hydrated. It's NAD shots, Botox, fillers, and cryo, and all of these things. It feels like everybody's got that problem, but that's people in my right. It's $40 Pilates. It's $900 Botox. Trips to Jamaica. If you want to hang right with your people, you got to stretch into a space that sometimes you don't actually belong or fit.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's any different, as we see with the example with Wendy and Eddie Osefo. You can make $500,000 a year and be completely broke if your lifestyle is costing you $550,000 a year.
Right.
And that's something a lot of people don't understand. I've had a boat, we've had a plane. These things cost a lot of money. You have to keep them somewhere. You have to store them. You have to keep them safe and up to date. And every time you bang into something, you got to fix it, right? Big house means you're cleaning a whole lot. You got to pay cleaners to come in if you're too busy
Mhm.
working to clean it, right? Everything
Mhm.
has a cost. And the more you go up in income, the more everything else costs. The difference is, and I want to make sure we are all very clear, the difference is somebody like me, when I have to fall backwards, it's not as difficult, right? I've already got my needs met. Wendy and Eddie don't seem to be the type of people who appreciate the fact that they are successful, talented, they can put food on the table, they've got a roof over their head. It's not enough for them. And we can say it's enough for us, but I think a lot of people don't think it's enough for them either. And I
Right.
think a lot of people are constantly trying to reach into that next economic group right above them. And
Oh, yeah.
that's the human condition.
I agree. I know things around here, things we wanna do, we've had to really look at, how much we make and make the right decisions because, we wanna build a race car and start drag racing again. And I'm like, "Okay, we gotta start small because we can't we can't be taking out loans to build a car that we could drive it down the track one time and blow the engine and be out 3 grand." We've
Exactly.
gotta be very smart about this, and, thankfully, I have smart friends like you who are like, "Hey, don't be a dummy, pay attention to what you're doing." But this leads to my question, these people, why couldn't they have just filed bankruptcy of some sort to help them alleviate instead of staging a robbery? I mean, my thoughts are let's do this a little legal, but I guess it's that whole they had to have done something other illegal to figure they could get away with this.
I think it's the shame, and they would never
Mhm.
file for bankruptcy. That's the whole point here. It's easier
Yeah,
for them to commit 34 felonies than to acknowledge to the world that they are in over their heads. That is the way this works. A lot of things start with the word golden, and the irony is that they're not, right?
right.
We talked about golden handcuffs a couple of episodes ago. Well, this is the golden hamster wheel. The more you make, the more the expectation is. You start to move into a different category. The people there, like, where's your boat? Where's your Porsche going to the Porsche club? Why aren't you belonging to this club? Hey, we're all heading down to Florida to go to this club. It's just every single place you go, there will always be more people who have more money than you. And if you are constantly trying to be in that category, you will end up either in bankruptcy court or in jail, because there's no end game to that type of unfettered desire. That's what I think.
Well,
I think
I will.
that they fell into the trap of unfettered desire, and there was a show that was egging them on, and a community and a world that said, "Oh my god, they're Real Housewives." And I'm sure she felt the pressure to stay, looking rich and all of those things, and it doesn't look so good when maybe you don't get renewed if you file for bankruptcy and you're a Real Housewife, right? Although I think we've seen a few do that. I think they would
Mhm.
follow her along, but of course she should have done. Of course they should have gone to a bankruptcy lawyer and not straight to the criminal activity.
Well, this stuff, just as a side note, this stuff is not something that is Bravo specific or, rich people specific. I've heard just recently stories of, influencers who have gone from barely any income to making a lot of money, and they go out and buy $1 million house and the big
And then it all
expensive
dries
cars,
up.
and that it dries up and they're like, now what do I do? And some have, done illegal things, and some have taken the hit and filed bankruptcy or done whatever. It is all socioeconomic levels that this happens to, and it can scale up really quickly.
Well, I can tell you, Kristen, that a $5,000 credit card bill for me does cause the exact same amount of chest pain as a 500 one might cause for you, and incrementally up. I mean, I'm sure you've had a $5,000 balance on a credit card. It scales up, right? And I remember when we had our boat, all I wanted to do was get rid of it because I was so afraid every time we took it out that I was gonna bang it up and have to write a check. I didn't always have money just to write a check in case I dinged it against the dock, you know? And
Mhm.
those are the types of, it sounds so stupid, but those are real concerns. And um being able to step outside yourself and see what the Osefos did in an attempt to maintain an illusion. The panic will scale, doesn't matter who you are. That kinda
Yep.
does bring us back to Wendy. I mean, if you're faking it, you are eventually gonna hit a wall. There was no, it's like we talked about with the, a Ponzi scheme, right? Like, what is the end game? Where do they
Right.
think they're going with this? I mean,
Right.
come on, let's be honest. If you and I were gonna stage a robbery, we would have done it way better than that.
Well, yeah, because
I mean, like,
uh,
we've watched enough shows where you have to break the glass from the outside so the glass falls on the inside, right? I mean, you
mhm,
gotta do some stuff. It
mhm.
it
Yeah,
feels like they didn't even p it feels like they were so privileged that they didn't even think they had to work at this crime. I have to tell you that I think that's pissing me off that their crime was so bad that they did this so poorly, and I would have expected much more creativity on their part.
I
Isn't
think
that
if
terrible?
somebody no, here I'm on the same page as you. If I were going to stage a crime, I feel as though I would watch a whole lot of crime shows. Now, I would also have started this quite far back, so they couldn't just say, "Oh, wait, 3 weeks before she binge watched 13 series of a TV show." No, no, no,
Exactly.
no,
You gotta play the long game. Gotta play the long
no.
game.
So,
Chess,
that's
not
why
checkers.
exactly, that's why my Google history and my TV watch history is so vague and really random, because one day I may need to know. I'm not going to, by the way, legal people, not gonna happen. I might need to know how to handle a situation, and I won't
Exactly.
get
You gotta
pegged.
handle the situation. How else you gonna do it? But you can't do the Google searches. Don't
No,
put it in
and
your
they
TikTok search.
no, they did not do enough research on how to make a believable crime scene. We definitely could have done this a whole lot better.
I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for
Yes.
Wendy and Eddie, to be honest. This is, not only am I embarrassed that they got caught, I'm embarrassed that they had to do this, but I'm embarrassed that they didn't have the giddy up or the intelligence or the creativity to do this better, let's be honest.
What type of
And
lawyer is Eddie?
I don't know what kind of lawyer is. I'll probably look that up while we're sitting here talking.
Only
But
reason I ask.
I kind of get the impression that he is the kind of lawyer that just talks about the fact that he's a lawyer, but they make all their money off of Bravo. You know what I mean?
Definitely not a criminal lawyer because a criminal lawyer would have done this way better.
Yeah, a criminal lawyer would have done this way better. Did a quick search. He is a talented professional known for being an attorney, an entrepreneur, and a TV personality. So when you are, he was born in Nigeria. He pursued an impressive education, and now here he is, a personality. So as a lawyer answering this question, the answer is apparently he's not really one.
Mm-mm.
I mean, he's technically a lawyer, but he doesn't practice. That means that he doesn't remember anything from law school, clearly, because even in law school, we went through criminal acts, and we learned about a lot of them, and most of us know the primary things not to do, and that is do not report something stolen and then have a photo of you with it afterwards on social media for millions of people to see. That's number one.
Okay, I just Googled also because I'm very curious about this. In
Yeah.
2024, he claimed he was still a practicing attorney despite his cannabis company success. I did not know he has a cannabis company. And he had uh, this new venture it takes time away from his work, and that Us Magazine did confirm that the DC bar shows Eddie's law license has been active since 2014. So I'm this is gonna I can feel the rabbit hole coming. But anyway, I'm disappointed that their crimes weren't better covered because not that I want a criminal to get away with something, but if you're gonna do it, at least put a little effort in, man.
To feel that they just collapsed under the weight of 67 credit cards. I mean, just like the Ponzi scheme guy has to have all these separate books, right? And has to keep everything straight. There comes a point in time because credit stacking can collapse when you have all these credit cards. One late payment spikes an interest rate increase on all of them because I mean, if they are all in your name using your social security number, then when you fall behind on one, you start to see the results. You start to see the higher interest get applied to your cards that already exist. So clearly they must have started their credit stacking had started to collapse, much like a Ponzi scheme. You're taking from the bottom to pay to the top, and you're using the cards to make the minimum payments and everything. Insurance fraud really is genuinely a felony in the United States if you use the mail or email, or the telephone. It's federal mail fraud because it's going across state lines, and you're sending information. So that's how they get the telecom and the mail fraud. You're risking prison for a handbag. I think they were risking prison to try to pretend that their life was better to keep up their image, and now they might be paying the ultimate price for it, right?
That's the danger. Again, this isn't just a quote unquote rich person problem. This is a low income or middle class problem as well. Credit stacking is a problem. You get max out
It
one card,
absolutely
take out
is.
another one, keep going. And that's why people end up filing bankruptcy. I will admit, when I had my business and I was trying to keep my business afloat, I was doing that.
Of course.
I was paying my business bills with our personal income and using my credit card to keep the rest of us afloat. And it just spirals out of control. And it's not great. So how do
I
we
think I
stop
think I
this?
think I think there's a difference, though. I think, what you are describing is, a largely innocent consumer who's getting wrapped up in a cycle, right? And and
Right.
and it's in fairness to the Osefos, notwithstanding their criminality, I'm sure they were feeling that pressure too,
Mhm.
right? Like they were feeling the pressure of, all of these credit card stacking, and they not getting enough money from, I don't know, maybe his law practice that doesn't exist. And so they're not getting paid enough from Bravo, but they got to keep up this image, and she's not getting paid enough at the Wesleyan school where she was visiting. So, they want the Birkins and they want this stuff. The difference is between an innocent person who finds themselves in debt, and somebody like the Osefos. You can see by the outcome. right? The outcome indicated really their state of mind throughout the process. Regular, normal people who have, bad things happen to them, who end up in the hospital, whose kids are end up sick, or spouse ends up dying, or their business fails, they tend to feel terrible about themselves, hate themselves, and think it's all their fault. But bankruptcy is a safe, simple, easy solution for them. But if you don't think about life that way, if you're thinking about how to try to game the system, how to try to, then your mentality looks a little bit different. You're going to insurance fraud. You're not going to bankruptcy. And I want to make sure people who are listening, who have lived beyond their means at times, or been involved with credit stacking, who found themselves just in a world of hurt right now, whatever you do, please do not fake a robbery. Okay. Bankruptcy
Mhm,
does exist and it is safe and legal. And I
mhm.
didn't mean to necessarily bring it back to this, but the alternative is you're not a bad person because you have debt. You are a bad person because you commit crimes. And so
Right.
let's make sure we separate those two out, right?
Absolutely.
Uh,
All right. So how do we stop this? You talked about the golden hamster wheel. How do we step off the wheel?
we're starting to see more of this like loud budgeting, right? And I wonder if there's going to be shows about this because Bravo's done a really good job by highlighting all these real housewives because I think a lot of people think that they're really rich. And one of the
Mhm.
things I understand is that many of them are not really. Some of them are, but some of them really are not. So what I think is, I think we're going to start seeing more and more of is the the opposite, this what we call loud budgeting, people who are proud that they're budgeting, proud that they're staying within a budget. And I do think budgeting's the hardest part, right?
Mhm.
Budgeting is the hardest part. And credit cards give us an illusion that we don't have to budget. And I think that sitting down and understanding exactly what's coming in and knowing exactly what needs to go out is part of the process. I think that's how people start to, understand this better. But we're seeing creators who are like, I'm not going out to dinner tonight. I'm not spending that money. Cannot afford it. Here's what my bank account is. And I actually think that's very helpful. It's loud budgeting. It's saying, it's screaming from the top of the rooftops, I can't afford that. And like forcing other people to start to come live where you're living and not you live where they're living. Have you seen any of
Mhm.
that?
I have. I really, even though I'm terrible at budgeting, not gonna lie, I love watching those people that like I can't remember. I know you follow them. The one woman that writes down the budgets and goes through and says how you can pay it off and things like that. I love that. I love the people that are like, so this is my dollar amount for the month. This is what I did with it. This is how much. And I put the rest here or did this or did that. I love that
Yeah.
because I do see a trend of people changing the way they're looking at finances. Justin and Haley from Price of Avocado Toast. I love that they're trying to guide people in the same way. I love that those accounts, those influencers are out there because it does give people the okay, I don't have to do all of this. I don't have to buy this or go here or do this. I can wait. I can save for it. I could do this. It's not urgent. This isn't going to end my life if I don't do it right this second. And I think that is becoming a bigger part of people's, I hate to say it this way, but a bigger part of people's content. You know, I may be an influencer, but this is how I make sure I don't go straight off the deep end with my money and do better things with my life. I think it's really becoming a little bit more prevalent, at least the stuff I follow. But it's definitely out there, and I think it is. I think loud budgeting is really becoming something big because everybody's feeling the pinch.
I also think that things are shifting. I've personally never been that kind of influencer that will show anything off, right?
Mhm,
Most people don't know what car I drive. Most people have
mhm,
never seen the front of my house. No, most
mhm,
people, I don't talk. I talk to you about the things I do, but I am not the type of person who, when I'm in Jamaica, I'm like, I'm in Jamaica. Look
right.
at this beauty. Like I find that to be very. It doesn't. it doesn't sit with me right. It's
Mhm.
always made me a little uncomfortable to watch influencers like talk about their wealth and their money and that. But I recognize it's a relief from the 80s, 90s, 2000s era where, that was what our world was. I do think it's shifting a little bit. I
Mhm.
do think it is shifting to some extent. I think there's this awareness now that we cannot keep going indefinitely
Mhm.
consuming, stupid stuff. We just can't do that. And so it feels like there's pockets of people, more and more pockets of people who are like, yeah, you are right, Adrienne. I cannot go to Pilates and do this and do that and do that. And bang, it's too much. It's too much. And to have
Mhm.
somebody in your peer group say, I am spitting the bit on this, it is not worth my time or energy, allows somebody else to feel like they don't have to. So I think that's important too. I do.
Yeah.
There is power and relief in just admitting that you don't want to spend money. I think that's where we're starting to move to. I like it. I still like
Yeah.
stuff. I still like to buy stupid stuff, but I buy less stupid stuff and I'm more thoughtful. And
Right.
sometimes those loud budgeting people make me I feel like they're talking to me. I feel
I agree 100%. I've been in the affiliate marketing world for a while, so my job is to try and sell stuff to people, but I've kinda changed the way I do things because I only now do things I would actually spend my money on. And I make sure it's something that's worth it, not just junk.
Well, I'm really glad that you said that because what you're actually doing is you are letting our audience know that next week we're going to be talking about de influencing. I will say that it is harder for people now than it was in our parents' generation because they didn't have the Instagram. Like our
Mhm.
parents literally had to keep up with the literal Joneses, like the people
Mhm.
right next to them. They didn't have to keep up
Yep.
with every single person in the entire universe that they can see on a phone and compare their lives to. And just remember, if you're really jealous of people, please remember there are more people like Wendy and Eddie Osefo or people calling me to file bankruptcy than you realize. It screws with your mind because a lot of what we see isn't even really true. So why are we working towards something that's not even possible?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think you should look at your credit card statements, circle the things that you bought only because you wanted someone else to see that you have them and stop funding other people's opinions. I mean, that's that's the advice, right? Even I would have trouble taking that advice. I care about what people think about me. I do.
Yeah.
And I think there has to be a barrier between
Yeah.
reality and fakeness.
It's called
What about you?
boundaries. But it's called
It is.
boundaries. We oh,
Boundaries. It's called
we do need to put those up.
we have guardrails. I just think you and I are just not the type of people who would survive well in jail.
No. No, 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 no. No,
No, no,
I will say
no.
I do have a list of folks that if I went to jail for some reason, I do know they would put money on my books.
I'd put money
I
on your
don't
books for you. Mhm.
I'd put money on
I
yours. It
would.
probably wouldn't be as much as you
Thank
would want.
you. No, no, no. I get it. I appreciate that. And I'd be working other people to put money on my accounts too, but I would put money on your accounts.
Listen, 20
Yeah.
bucks in prison is 20 bucks. You can get a lot of things for 20 bucks in jail. So I hear. Whether it's a new tractor or a Birkin bag, if you can't pay cash, you cannot afford the flex.
That is so true. True wealth is sleeping well at night because you don't owe anybody anything. Wouldn't it be nice to get to that? Well,
One
Kristen,
day, my friend.
we next week we are doing the de-influencing episode. It's going to be fun. In the meantime, don't sign anything that you don't read, right?
And watch where you step.
We hope you feel a little smarter and a little less alone than you did just 40 minutes ago.
If you learned something, leave us a review or share this with a friend who needs the truth.
Don't sign anything until you read the fine print.
And watch where you step. See you next week.